Hello and welcome to Season 2 of the Coming Down to Earth with Spirit podcast with me, David Hale. Like with Season 1, we will continue talking about all things spiritual in a real and down-to-earth way. So I hope you can join me on my podcast journey so you can learn from my own spiritual journey and experiences with spirit in order to help you on your own spiritual journey and development. So join me now as we get into this episode. Hello everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I hope you're well. Thanks for tuning in again, and I hope you are enjoying the content of the podcast. But as always, if you have questions you'd like me to answer in a podcast, then do get in touch and let me know what they are. And this episode, it's not as morbid as the title may suggest, but it's based on a written piece. I don't know if I want to call it a poem or something else, but they are words by a man called Andrew McLaren, who I know nothing about, but I saw these words posted on a Spiritualist Church's Facebook page, and I thought, yes, I like that poem because I think it resonates with me, but I think it will resonate with a lot of people. And actually, this poem inspired me to come up with an address that I then used in a couple of church services that I've done, and I think people got a lot from it. So firstly, what I'm going to do, I'm going to read this piece, and then I'm going to talk about the address that I put together. It won't be exactly the same as I did it at the churches and centres that I did the service for, but I'll just be talking about, what the content of the address was. So I'm going to read the words by Andrew McLaren first. Did you know that when you cry for your dead, you cry for you and not them? You cry because you lost them, because you don't have them by your side. You think it all ends in death, and you think they are not there anymore. So if they're dead no more, where are they? Yes, they have left, or they are now somewhere else. Is that place better than this? Yes, definitely that place is better than this. So why do you suffer for their departure? When you have finished accepting that they are no longer not here, but they are still in another place even better than this, where there's no longer sick or suffering, then you'll stop mourning them, and you'll get them back in memory, so they keep accompanying you with the joy of all that you've lived. If you truly loved them, love them again, and this time with greater strength, with greater purity, with greater delivery. Today, there will be no more reproach of any kind. Only love will be the essence between you, between us, between them. I respect your pain and the way you express it. I know you cry and you will cry without comfort. But today I say to you, don't die with your dead. Remember, you are only seeing one side of the coin. We are not looking the other way. We are not seeing the wonderful place of light where they stand. What if we start seeing death as a second birth? Second birth we all will go through. Don't die with your dead. Honour them by living your life as they would have wanted you to. Let them transcend, and you keep living. So for some of you, those words will speak for itself. But let's just break it down. Let's just talk about some of the things that I discussed during the address that I came up with off the back of this poem, if you like. Now, I wonder how many of you have said to yourself, or you've heard someone say things like, I feel like I've lost my right arm since my loved one died. I feel like a part of me has died since my loved one has died. And both of those things, we can completely understand, because people do feel like that. And they do feel like the death of a loved one is part of a death of themselves to an extent. And what can happen then is, in some cases, and I've seen this through readings that I've done, I've seen it, in the family, and that is, when that happens, people do stop living, and effectively they die alongside their dead to an extent. And what I mean by that is, people stop doing simple things like smiling. People stop laughing. People stop enjoying themselves and trying to make the most out of life. Again, that's understandable. But spirit don't want that from us. They want us to laugh. And, there are some people who do feel guilty for laughing. And that's purely because the person they want to be laughing with them is in the spirit world. And so people stop doing those kind of things. And also on top of that, people may stop doing or taking part in big life events. So, for example, you may have heard of a friend or family member who's a female who says, how can I now walk down the aisle and get married when my dad, who's in the spirit world now, is not here to walk me down the aisle? How can I now go to university and complete my degree? How can I now achieve that qualification when the people that I want here to see me achieve those qualifications are no longer here physically? How can I go on that holiday of a lifetime when the person that I want to go with me is no longer here physically? So people stop doing these kind of life events. Again, it could be a normal reaction, but again, spirit don't want us to stop doing those things. And through this work, I've seen both sides of how death can affect people, both the negative point of view and from the more positive point of view. I'm going to give some personal examples now of what I'm talking about. So I'm going to take my maternal grandparents, right? My maternal grandparents, they were strong Irish Catholic people, right? They were very much into the church. They did the church trips to Lourdes. They had pictures of Jesus up in their home. My nan, in fact, she had a bottle of holy water in the shape of the Virgin Mary on the inside of the front door. So we didn't have to bless ourselves as we walked in the house or anything. It's more symbolic of how religious they were and what faith they had. In fact, I've got a pair of my nan's rosary beads actually, because they believed in God. That was their faith. They had a strong faith. They went to church multiple times a week. My granddad was always jovial, and he was the joker. In fact, he was known as the wind-up merchant because he would do things just to wind you up on purpose because he thought it was hilarious. So that was who they were. And then in 1998, sadly, my uncle, their only son, died of a heart attack at the age of 36, just instantly, no warning. And from that very point, their lives changed. They were never the same again. And we all in the family, we all said it. You could see the instant change in them, which again is understandable. But even my nan, bless her heart, she's probably listening to me now, telling me off for telling all her secrets. But even up until when she died, which is many, many years later, she always carried this little bit of bitterness with her right up until the end of her life. My granddad, who was once that jovial grandfather, the joker, say the wind-up merchant, even his personality changed and he was never the same. And back then, I wasn't doing this work. I was only 16 at the time. So I didn't even know what spiritualism was or spirituality was. I knew what mediums were because I used to watch them on TV, but I didn't know anything about the philosophy of it. And it's one of those things you think back to, you think, if I'd have done this work, would I be able to say to them, please don't change, please continue living your life, because Uncle Frank, who was the consummate joker, the things we got up to, honestly, the stories I've heard, honestly, but he was funny with it. There's no maliciousness. It was just, he was funny, just did silly things, and it made us all laugh. He would want the same for his parents, my grandparents. He would want them to live their life. He'd want them to continue living their best life as much as they could, right? Because my uncle is probably up there having a laugh, winding everybody else up that's up there, right? But yeah, their lives really changed, and they really let it affect their life. Again, it's not a judgment thing. It's just when you see that, you see they're not the people that they used to be. It is sad. because spirit want us to live our life. They don't want us to be sad, and it's a natural thing. As the poem said, we cry for them because they're missing from our life physically, so the sadness is going to be there. But my belief is spirit is not crying for us because they're always with us. They see what is going on. And that's been proven in many readings that I've done, where spirit have told me things that have happened in a person's life since they passed, and they're things there's no way I could know about. I could not logically know these things. So spirit do see what's going on. So that's the more kind of negative side of it. If I look at the more positive side, if I take my mum, for example, my stepdad died in 2000. I keep saying died, right? There's probably spiritualist mediums listening to this going, they didn't die. No, they do die. They do physically die, right? But I try to avoid using that word, but it's coming out. So I've just got to use it. Maybe I'm meant to say that so I can resonate with people and just be an honest level with people, right? People do die. But yeah, he passed in 2012, and my mum could have gone the complete same way as my grandparents, but she didn't. Of course, yes, there was sadness there, absolutely. But my mum continued living her life and doing things which he would have wanted her to do. Because again, my stepdad is not the person to say, right, I've gone, so you can't. No, he's going to say, go on, get on with it. No, do this, do that, experience this, travel here, travel there. Because they did like to go places together. And one thing they didn't get to do together was go to Paris. So my stepdad always wanted to take my mum to Paris, but never got there, unfortunately. And that was in 2012, as I say, when he passed. And it so happens that in 2013, a company I was working for sent me to live in Paris over the summer of 2000. So I was in France. I lived in France for 6 months, and 5 of those months was in Paris over the summer period. So my mum had her bags packed. So her and my sister came over to see me whilst I was there for a long weekend, and we did all the tourist things. We saw the attractions and everything else, and we had a lovely time. And so that's my mum was not going to let his death stop her from living, from seeing things, from traveling. And since that point, my mum came and my sister came to Thailand on holiday with myself, my other half, and some of our friends. And she was climbing up waterfalls and mountains and hills, and and it wasn't going to stop her, because again, she knows that life is here for living and experiencing. And then last thing, they'd always talked about going on a cruise, but again, never got there. I remember a couple of years ago, he actually came through to me, and I said to her, he's talking about a cruise. And she went, oh, I was talking about that last week. And a couple of months ago, she got to go on a cruise. So she got there eventually. So again, it's the opposite of what my grandparents did. And again, I'm not putting any judgment on anybody, but it just shows that we know that death can affect people in different ways. But ultimately, spirit don't want us to be sad, because if we understand one of the principles of spiritualism, which is the continuous existence of the human soul, we would then understand that by that principle, our loved ones do live on, but just in another existence, which lives alongside us. So they do see what goes on. And again, coming back to what I said a moment ago, is that through readings that I've done, spirit have time and time again given me things related to the client that I've got sat in front of me, for things that have happened since they've passed. So show me that spirit do see those life events that we've got going on, those celebrations we've got going on, just day-to-day stuff that might have happened in our home. Spirit give you all that to show that they are in fact there. Our spirit people are in a place of happiness, a place of peace. They are no longer suffering or in pain. They are happy where they are. So why would they not want the same for us? Of course they do. We just need to try and wrap our heads around that and accept it. Coming back to the example I said earlier on about the girl not wanting to get married, that father in spirit is willing his daughter on. He's willing her to get married. He's willing her to walk down the aisle and marry the love of her life and be happy. And you know what? Knowing how spirit work, he will place someone in her life to walk her down the aisle on his behalf. Your spirit family want you to continue to achieve those goals and those qualifications or whatever it might be because you've worked hard for it. They're not going to miss out on those things. They want you to continue achieving because you're a human being who deserves the rewards from all the hard work that you put in. Your friend in the spirit world wants you to go on that holiday of a lifetime because you deserve it. You've worked hard for it. You might have even saved your money for a year to go on this holiday of a lifetime. And just because they're not here physically, they will be there with you in spirit. So go on that holiday because they also love the fact that whilst you're on holiday paying for those things, they don't have to. They get there for free. They haven't got to pay for a plane ticket or a boat ticket or whatever it might be. They get there for free. But they're only going to get there for free if you go on that holiday. And when you're on that holiday, you can look up or to side of you or wherever it might be, because spirit world is everywhere, and say, thank you. I know you're with me. So the reason I wanted to talk about that is because I see it all too often where people, they live their life in sadness. And again, there's no judgment here. It's a natural thing. But I want people to understand that spirit don't want us to be sad. They want us to live the rest of our life. And we could have, some of you listening could have another 40, 50 years left yet. Are you really going to live the rest of your 40, 50 years in misery? No, please don't, because spirit don't want you to. Spirit, again, they're in a happy place and therefore they want you to be just as happy, and you'll be reunited with them one day when it's your turn to get there. So consider what I've said. Have a think about, what you can do to make yourself, you might be happy, right? So this is if you are happy and you are content and and you are moving forwards, then that's absolutely fabulous. But if you're not, do think about what I've said here, what the words in the poem were saying to you as well, is that please make that choice to be happy, knowing that spirit want that for you. And please do not die with your dead. Well, there you have it. That's the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed what you heard and you found it interesting. There are plenty more episodes to come, so stay tuned and I'll speak to you all soon.